Welcome to CramerSez. CramerSez. Be part of the show at CramerSez.com. Interact on Twitter at CramerSez. Now, Kramer Says.
Welcome. My name is Kramer. This is the Kramer Says podcast. You can always catch us on Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Not currently on TikTok right now. We'll have to get that account back up there. They took two accounts within 14 hours of each other. So it must be something I'm saying. It's Friday, May 12th. Let's get to our first guest. Our guest today is a very special guest, a personal friend of mine. His name is Peter Flaherty. And although you may not know that name or the work that he does with the NLPC, the National Legal and Policy Center, you've definitely seen him on social media if you've been perusing the pages of these platforms over the last week because of what he did and what he got arrested for at the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting in Omaha last Saturday. Let me remind you, if you haven't seen it, this is what happened, and this is what he said.
I am Peter Flaherty, chairman of the National Legal and Policy Center. If we had an independent chair, the company would be less identified with Mr. Buffett's political activities. He's donated tens of billions to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. As Bill Gates explained when the company was still together, although the company bears our names, basically half our resources have come from Warren Buffett. If woke culture is the disease, then philanthropy is the virus. The Gates Foundation bankrolls the teaching of critical race theory around the country, including that math is inherently racist. The Gates Foundation offers a gender identity toolbox, which asserts that gender is a result of socially and culturally constructed ideas. This is a lie. Gender is not a cultural construct. It is a genetic and biological fact. You're not going to censor what I say, ma'am. I'm very sorry. And I'll appeal to the chair that I be allowed to continue. Sir?
You may continue, but you're under a 3-minute limitation.
Of course. We know how much Bill Gates cares about children. He met and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein many times after Epstein's convicted sex crimes. The Gates Foundation had a huge influence over the COVID response fiasco. The Gates Foundation may be the largest single donor to the dark money machine known as Arabella Associates. It funds causes like defunding the police, making American cities unlivable. Money goes also to groups conducting threats.
And that right there is when Peter Flaherty touched the third rail. You can't mention Bill Gates' name, a close personal friend of Warren Buffett's, in the same sentence with Jeffrey Epstein. If you do, they'll surround you with security and then arrest you and remove you from the building. That's the man of the hour, Peter Flaherty. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Good to see you, Tim.
Good to see you as well. You are quite the American hero these days.
Well, I wouldn't get carried away.
Well, it seems to be an American hero. Now, all you have to do is actually speak truth to power. Before we get into what happened in Omaha last weekend, let's talk about who you are, what the NLPC's mission is, and what the NLPC's investor activism program is. Take it away.
Sure. The National Legal and Policy Center was founded in 1991 by myself and the late Ken Bohm. We have two specific projects, one called the Government Integrity Project and one called the Corporate Integrity Project. Through the corporate project, we do shareholder activism. We've done it for 19 years. We've had shareholder proposals at most of the major companies. And so this is not a new thing for us. We're actually quite experienced. And this year we'll have proposals at 26 companies.
So explain that. When you talk about investor activism, what is that exactly?
Well, it's as a shareholder in a company, you have certain rights. And one of those rights is to file a proposal for the annual meeting to be voted on by shareholders. Your proposal is included in the proxy. Shareholders vote on it. It entitles you to speak at the annual meeting. And we use it as an opportunity to raise issues, both corporate governance issues and also public policy issues, which are sometimes related. And it's something the left has done very well for a long time, for 30 years. and you'd go to a meeting and there'd be, 5 proposals from left-wing groups, and we'd be the only people there. Now on the right. Now we're trying to change that. We do have some allies this year. The National Center for Public Policy Research, which has a similar name to ours. They're also shareholder activists. There's a guy named Bill Flagg who has an ETF called Conservative Values Fund. Bill had a proposal at Berkshire right after mine. Although
His go smoother than yours did.
Yeah, he didn't get carted out. But in any case, it's a way for shareholders to raise issues with the shareholder community at large for a particular company.
Well, give us an example. You say the left is very involved in this. Give us an example of what the left has done and where their success has been and how that's impacted people that don't even know they've been impacted by these investor activists on the left.
I'll give you a very recent and powerful example. For several years, liberal groups did shareholder proposals on ESG and carbon disclosure, mostly asking for reports. But they really scored last year when a small hedge fund ran 3 candidates for the Exxon board. They were kind of regarded as gadflies, but they did convince Larry Fink of BlackRock and other big institutional investors to support their candidates. So you had 3 candidates who oppose fossil fuels forced onto the Exxon board. In other words, Exxon now has 3 directors whose mission is to destroy the company. That is a powerful example, and the proposals on disclosure were a precursor to running these candidates and getting them elected.
How much of the activism that you're doing is involved with trying to either at least expose it or defeat ESG among these big corporations?
Well, quite a lot. We've reverse engineered liberal proposals in certain cases and asked for our own disclosure. But we approach it from a very different perspective, and we're able to articulate that perspective at the annual meeting. At the annual meeting, you most often have a captive audience and the CEO and the directors, and it may be the first time they've heard anything. A lot of our ideas are not elevated by the mainstream media. A lot of our arguments are unknown to these people. In certain cases, it's the first time they've heard them. So it's a very important opportunity for our side to be heard and to have people in positions of authority familiar with what we're saying. This is sort of the nitty-gritty of activism. And the left has done it. You have to give them credit. This year, we've been filing these proxy memos. They're these, unlike your supporting statement and resolution, which is limited to 500 words, you can file a proxy statement with the SEC regarding a particular company. It can be for or against a particular resolution or for or against a particular board member who's standing for election. It's filed with the SEC. It's available on EDGAR, which is the SEC's website service. The company also has to post it on their website.
So they can make it public.
Under their SEC filings. Right. So you might say, well, nobody reads that stuff. Well, the CEO reads it, especially if you're critical of him.
Right.
Board members read it. Their legal counsel reads it. Their largest investors read it. If you're a hedge fund and you own 20% of a major corporation, you pay attention to everything they do and everything that's done and said about them. So it's a very elite audience. Now, the left's been doing this for years. Only recently have free market advocates and conservatives and libertarians caught on to it. So we've been trying to spread the word and offer some leadership on this. We've also been teaching other people how to do it. So we feel it's very important. And
you teach other people how to do that. Is that something for the public, or is that for other people within the group that you're working with?
Well, it's not difficult. There are some requirements. You do have to own some stock. The thresholds are pretty low, maybe a few $1,000s worth. The rules are somewhat arcane. That's why we're teaching people. But it's not rocket science, and it can be done. And we're hoping that a wider variety of people will start weighing in and filing resolutions. There's 10,000 public companies in this country. We cannot possibly cover the whole waterfront. We try to
Right.
cover the biggest ones, but there are opportunities everywhere, and our side should start to take advantage of them.
Well, one of the most memorable lines of your rant at Berkshire Hathaway.
Well, I dispute, Tim, that it was a rant. That's what one liberal journalist has characterized it as, but my demeanor is the same. I've been going to meetings for 19 years.
Yeah.
I don't raise my voice. I don't swear. I'm respectful of the process, and my demeanor is appropriate for annual meetings.
I will give you that. Well, one of the most memorable lines that you gave is, if woke culture is the disease, philanthropy is the virus. Why do you think that hit so hard for Americans that heard that?
Yeah, I think it hit hard for Warren Buffett.
Agreed.
If you look at where the money is going from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that I cited,
Right.
It goes to all these dreadful things. It goes to school districts around the country to teach critical race theory and teach that math is inherently racist. There's a gender identity toolkit that if you go to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website right now, you can download it. And it's ridiculous. It claims that gender is not biological. It's a social and cultural construct, which, as I said at the meeting, is a lie. L-I-E, a lie. Gender is a reality of biology and genetics. When Bill Gates started, giving away, or more than giving away, but being a very activist kind of philanthropist, maybe a decade or two ago, he got great press. He got plaudits. He was going to cure disease. He was going to feed the poor on every continent. His vast fortune that he earned at Microsoft through his own genius was going to be put at the disposal of the human race. Well, that sounded pretty good, and it sounded pretty good to Warren Buffett, who said, well, I'm pretty rich too. Why should I reinvent the wheel? I'll just give it to Bill and Melinda Gates. So that's what he did, and all told, it may approach $100 billion when all his commitments are fulfilled. That's a lot of money. But in the meantime, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is involved in supporting all kinds of activists really around the world. They're supporting the kind of activists in this country that are undermining civil society, that are tearing the country apart. I was just about to get to it when my mic went dead. Maybe I was sort of in the middle of it. But I was pointing out that there's reports that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the largest single contributor to Arabella Advisors. Now, that's the left's dark money machine. And the money gets, dispensed out to people who want to defund the police, making American cities unlivable. It's going to groups that are holding vulgar and loud and threatening demonstrations in front of the houses of Supreme Court justices. And I think if the American people knew really how damaging and harmful big philanthropy is right now, they'd have a totally different perspective on it. And it's not just Gates and Buffett. It's also Mark Zuckerberg. It's Reed Hastings. It's a whole bunch of them. But that's why it's one of the reasons why our society is in such turmoil now. Anytime there's an opportunity, these activists appear. And unfortunately, the most shrill and extreme activists are being bankrolled by the richest people, the ultra rich in our society.
If people go to your website, NLPC.org, they'll find that you guys have been doing this, again, like you stated, for a long, long time. But you're into more than just Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation and Berkshire Hathaway. Explain a little bit more in depth. And going through the website, I've seen story after story about ESG, because so much of what we're fighting today is centered around that one thing. Explain that for just a moment as to why that has to be battled in line with your activism.
Yeah, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And, it sounds good, but it's basically a way to advance an anti-capitalist, an anti-democratic agenda using corporate America as the vehicle. Now, the ESG forces made a great deal of progress in the last few years. Fortunately, in the last year or so, there's been a fight back against it. I don't really like that term backlash, but I guess it's akin to a backlash against it. And now even people like Larry Fink are backing away from it, at least rhetorically.
Well, I think a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people were aware of what was going on, and once they became aware, I think it was a pushback. It was like, no, we're not going to do that. And
Yeah, and just to give a little, explanation as to what it is. What they try to do is to get companies to sign up for all kinds of things. On the environmental front, it might be endorsing net zero goals and that sort of thing. And a lot of companies have bought into it. On social, it's so vague, almost to be meaningless, but that would be supporting, gay and transgender rights, maybe throw abortion in there.
That diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's their...
Yeah, that's where that kind of
Right.
is categorized. But the governance thing is interesting because it's provided a point of attack for us. Because as shareholder activists, we actually not only raise some of these issues that we've discussed already, but also corporate governance issues. Our proposal at Berkshire actually was a proposal to separate the roles of chairman and CEO. And it's kind of good corporate governance 101. Most corporate governance experts frown on having the same person in both roles. And the reasons are obvious that if you have one person in charge of a public company, he may start serving his interests rather than all shareholders who own stock. If you have, a couple different leaders, you have sort of diverse leadership and diversity of opinion. And Berkshire may be an unusual case. It may be a singular case because it's so identified with Warren Buffett. In the public's mind, Buffett and Berkshire are really the same thing. So we've argued that makes it even more important that that there be a separation of those two roles. We've been at a number of annual meetings this year, like Goldman Sachs, which have pledged their everything to ESG.
Right.
They can't stop talking about it. They sign up for everything, but they ignore the G. Goldman Sachs has a CEO and chairman named David Solomon. He holds both posts. Well, it's kind of like they're paying attention to the E and the S, but they're hypocrites on G.
Exactly.
And David Solomon should know that G doesn't stand for Gulfstream. It stands for governance. Solomon has been criticized for personal use of the corporate jet, among other things.
Well, on Saturday, let's go back. So now we know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Let's go to last Saturday when this right here happened. What were your thoughts going through your head as this was taking place?
I was too stunned to really have any coherent thoughts. I've been a shareholder activist for 19 years. I've never had my mic cut, and I've most certainly never been arrested. And they weren't just taking me away; they told me I was under arrest. That police officer there, whose name is Ackerson, placed me under arrest immediately. It should be clarified that even though he's an Omaha police officer in uniform, he was off duty. He was working in a private
security. He wasn't actually in his official role. He was security.
Yeah, that's correct. As I understand it, it's my understanding that he was employed by the security force that was working the arena that day.
Okay.
And the two guys who approached me and who told the cop to arrest me never identified themselves to me. I figured they were security. They had kind of a Too Many Rock concert look about them, but they never told me who they were.
Well, when you finished, when they turned your mic off, I mean, you had to be shocked. You'd just been told by Buffett that you could continue and you had to stay within your 3 minutes. And when the mic was shut off, you still had time left. So in your mind, you still had time to speak. Is that why you stated, I'm not leaving until, and I don't know if that's what you said, but I'm not leaving until I'm able to speak, because you were arrested for criminal trespass, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it was, there was a little bit of confusion around that time. I did not know really when my mic went dead. I had these guys suddenly standing in front of me, so I didn't know if the mic was live or dead. I wanted to get back to the microphone and finish my statement. Well, I'm sorry, Tim. What was your question?
Well, the question is when you were told by Buffett that you still had time left. You
Oh,
just
yes,
in your
yes.
3 minutes, right? Is that why you stated, I'm not leaving, I still have time? Was that your
Well,
thing?
I didn't say I'm not leaving. All I said was I'll leave when I finish my statement. And I thought it was a perfectly reasonable position because it wasn't clear to me my mic had been shut off. I was still within my 3-minute limitation. In fact, even after I'd been arrested, I was still within my 3-minute limitation.
Yeah, right.
And as far as I knew, I had received a affirmative ruling from the chair, which I'd asked for, 30, 40 seconds before. So I was just flabbergasted that I was being cut off and escorted out. I certainly operated within my rights at all times. Berkshire Hathaway did not. I had every right to that microphone. My proposal was duly filed. It appeared in the proxy as proposal number 8. On April 21st, we filed a proxy memo. My name appeared on the agenda, yet I'm charged with some kind of criminal trespassing. How can that be when my name is on the agenda?
Right. That's exactly what I said. I made a video about you in this situation on social media, and that's exactly what I said. The exact same thing. He was on the schedule. You were on the schedule. You were scheduled to be there.
Yeah, I had every right to be there. And let me say that, Berkshire's a public company, and it was their meeting, and they hire the security force for the hall. But as a public company, their operations are subject to corporate law in Delaware, where they're incorporated, and also subject to regulation by the SEC. So their control of the hall is not unqualified. It's not unlimited. I was there as a shareholder, a partial owner of the company, with rights, and those rights were violated. Now, there's a general free speech problem here, but there's also the problem of me being there in an
official capacity,
in an official role, put it this way, in a sanctioned role, in an agency role, and to have them revoke that from me is certainly illegal.
Right. One of the things that I heard you say, and I think it's true, was that when you were interviewed by Mark Levin, you made the statement that you had touched the third rail in that room. What was that third rail?
Well, I talked about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I didn't expect that to be pleasing to Buffett, and from his demeanor, it wasn't. But when I mentioned Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein, he became very animated. I couldn't hear what he said. I don't believe he ever ruled me out of order or anything like that. I've looked at the tape and I can't figure out what he said. He was kind of talking over me. But that seemed to be the turning point when they just decided that I was going to be gone.
Well, it was interesting in our conversation getting this together. You had mentioned that when you had your picture taken, that you decided that this was an opportunity as well. Speak about that.
Well, I mean, I'm in this jail. The cops are laughing at me because I had a business suit on. It was like, well, what are you doing here? And then I'd explain to them, and they thought it was even funnier. But there were other people there who had been arrested, people with serious problems. People who had too much to drink, people who were accused of domestic abuse. I really felt bad for them, and it was, in that sense, a good experience. But the mugshot is always such a interesting thing, and so many people are not at their best when they're in their mugshot. And the problem with mugshots,
Life, yeah, they're it's not the tip of their or the top of their
yeah,
achievements
it's
generally.
not the best part of their day and or year. But in any case, mugshots everywhere are public information.
Right.
And they're easy to get. So I thought that instead of looking like a criminal, I would just smile because I could bail myself out and leave, and I felt bad for the other people who'd be spending the night in jail.
Well, you'd mentioned that you were kind of upset because this does not look like a real mugshot.
No, do I look like a criminal?
Well, I had some of the guys work up a difference for you, so you could be able to at least have
Oh,
mugshot.
that's wonderful. Oh, Tim, thank you so much. I'll treasure that. That's beautiful.
I'll send it off to you. We did this one as well because we thought it was fitting because so many people took that quote. If woke culture is the disease, then philanthropy is the virus. I think that will potentially be on your headstone.
Well, I like that one too. Good work.
We'll get them both to you. In wrapping things up here, Peter, let's talk about this woke culture, the culture war. Do you think that what you did last Saturday is like a very viral shot across the bow of waking people up to what's going on? Do you think that what you did last Saturday and the arrest and so on opened some people's eyes?
Well, I hope so. People are being mobilized in every community around the country. They're going to school boards. They're fighting critical race theory. They're trying to stop this nonsense with telling little children that they can be a boy or a girl. It's within their choice. People are fighting back, and it's been very heartening to see. Where I live here in Virginia, it was quite an issue in the gubernatorial election last year. But what I'd like to put a focus on is where is all this craziness coming from? Why are there activists in every community pushing these extreme ideologies? Why is a social order under attack in every community? Schools, family, gender. And I'll tell you why. It's because these billionaires are dumping so much money into the cause.
Right.
Now, they didn't invent all these activists, but there aren't that many of them. But they're enabling them.
Right.
And so it's easy for parents and average citizens, and even public policy groups like us, to feel outgunned by these people because they have resources, multiples of what we have. But we've got to fight back, and I think an important part of the fight is to expose where this money is coming from. And it's not coming from crazies. It's coming from respectable people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and the rest of them.
How can those that are watching and listening right now, how can they help you, the NLPC, in your mission?
Well, they can come to our website. It's nlpc.org. If they're Berkshire shareholders, they can call the investor relations office and ask what the company's position is on having me thrown out. And most of all, just keep your eye on the ball. Let's follow the money.
I agree.
If people can kind of spread the word and articulate some of the things that I articulated on Saturday, I'd be delighted.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As always, I love learning more about what the NLPC is doing and the mission that you're on. You've done this before, right? Is this your last stunt, or are you going to go back out and do it again, trying to repeat it again?
Well, it's not a stunt. I've been doing the same thing for 19 years, and we will continue with our corporate integrity project. It's headed by a very talented guy named Paul Chesser, who, in fact, Paul was at the Verizon meeting yesterday. We had a proposal there on disclosing government censorship requests. But we will continue, and we hope to have proposals at an even larger number of companies next year.
Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, Tim, I really thank you. I know you do a great job in spreading the word on so many issues, and you kind of make it fun and exciting. So I'm sorry I'm so boring, but maybe Saturday helped me to redeem myself.
You had a much more exciting Saturday last Saturday than I had. Again, thank you so much for joining us. And with that, we'll wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow or as soon as we can. We'll see you then.
Get more at CramerSez.com. CramerSez.com.